Good evening, everybody. Welcome to an edition of Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle, and tonight we have a very, very special show for you. As you can see, there are a lot of people on the screen right now. So I'm going to get the bad news out of the way first, right? All of us were supposed to be in New Hampshire, right?
I was waiting to do that. Sorry.
That's a sick background, by the way, actually. So all of us were supposed to be in New Hampshire, and that didn't happen. When we were planning this trip, as of like Wednesday, I think we were still in the clear. And then looking at the weather on Thursday night and Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, it changed completely. It was supposed to rain on Saturday on and off on Wednesday. And then as of Thursday night, we were completely rained out. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, still raining up there right now. Evan's up there. That's where he lives. And so this didn't happen, which really, really sucks. Took the air out of my sails pretty good, and I know it did probably the rest of us too. So we decided that we would try to get everybody on the show and just have a little roundtable discussion and shoot the shit. And, since we couldn't all be together up there. So everybody, here is the rest of the group. You probably know, everybody probably knows most of you guys at this point. Mike Ann from Tactical Bigfoot Research, Evan from New Hampshire Sasquatch, Aleks Petakov from Small Town Monsters, Mike Luci from This Week in Bigfoot, and Brian and Chewie go hiking. Well, they're going podcasting tonight. Welcome, guys.
How's it going, man?
It's going.
I wish I was with you guys in the woods right now, but unfortunately we had one of the first nor'easters of the year. It's a nor'easter, as we call them up here in New Hampshire / New England. So started raining Friday and basically didn't stop until, like, at least for me, I'm in southern New Hampshire. It stopped like a couple hours ago. So I wasn't really able to even do much this weekend. I got attacked by yellow jackets the night that we canceled the plane, because I was like, hey, let me go practice my tree saddle stand, and I got a yellow jacket attack, so that was fun. But yeah,
I forgot about that.
I'd rather be in the woods with you guys, but here we are.
Hey, London.
Yeah. Hey, Christy, how are you? Thanks for tuning in.
So,
yeah,
my co-host.
Much rather be with you guys out in the woods right now.
Yeah.
We had a lot planned, right? I mean, you guys want to talk about some of the stuff that we were planning on doing?
Yeah, I don't want to give away the location or anything like that.
Nope.
So we'll just keep it vague, because this was a piece of private property that I've been trying to get on for quite a while. So try to get up there at some point. But so we'll just speak vaguely. We'll say northern New Hampshire. How's that?
Perfect.
That sounds fine. I think the big thing when I kind of suggested to Kyle, we all get together, is that, we were going to be sitting around a campfire and kind of throwing ideas and spitballing and I think we did some of that, and some of the things that we came up with, I think, could kind of help some other folks that are paying attention to what we do. And so, trying to figure out where we can get started, because there were so many different ideas that we kind of threw out there. I don't know who wants to start on that one and roll with it, So,
I guess I'm being told I'm quiet, so do I sound better now, hopefully?
Sounds fine.
Sounds fine to me.
Sound okay to me.
My mic was plugged in. I have had this issue a lot lately for some reason. It's connecting to my stupid headphones. So, sorry, guys. Hopefully it sounds better. Guys, let me know. If someone in the comments could just say, but not trying to derail it. But
no, you're good.
No.
You'll just have to yell the whole show.
Yeah, you're just not as loud. You're not as loud as everyone else. That's all.
I'll go get my hearing aids, put them in, we'll be able to hear
Brian?
you.
Is this what you want?
Louder.
No, we should be good now. But I guess unless anyone else wants to start it up, I can kind of give some backstory, I suppose.
Go for it.
I think, start off with the backstory would be good, why we wanted to go there.
It hasn't changed your volume, Alex. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with this mic? Let me just one moment here. Okay, I have the volume is up on the Yeti. Don't know why this is happening. Okay.
I mean, we
How about
can.
now?
Kyle or I can turn you up too. So
Yeah,
it's I've been having weird mic issues. Like this has never happened to me before. It's just been the last couple of weeks. So it says it's saying my Yeti mic for some reason. Volume is extremely low on.
there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Does that sound better?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yep.
So I was checking the settings in StreamYard, and there was 2 Yeti microphone drop downs. One was selected and only had one of the green circles going, and I select the second one, and now apparently it's saying I'm full volume. So I don't know what the heck is going on. Sorry, guys. I apologize.
It's okay.
You're quieter than the other guys. Okay. All right. So we're good now. I guess I'll just make sure to check that every time I'm on StreamYard. But yeah, so some backstory. A few years ago, I don't know if it was like a year, it was probably about 2 years ago at this point. I got a message from this guy. He had a piece of private property in northern New Hampshire that he's hunted at for basically his whole life. It's in an area, Coos County, which is the northernmost county in New Hampshire, which is known for a lot of moose, a lot of good hunting. It's very rural, very remote. And there's the stories of the wood devils there, which is kind of a New Hampshire Bigfoot legend type thing. It's one of those pre-Bigfoot legends that sort of fits the modern Bigfoot description pretty much to a T, at least to my research. I've been trying to track down the origins of the wood devil story since like 2016 at this point. And so this guy messages me, he says, hey, seen some of your videos. I have this property I have access to if you guys would like to come check it out sometime. We've had stuff happening going on there in the past, and he talked about a few things he had happen, and he heard stories from old timers. So we thought, hey, a piece of private property, no one's allowed to come mess with you at least, right? And you have access to it. And it was a fairly large area. We'll just say it was north of 1,000 acres and in between 20,000 acres. So there's a lot in there. We'll just say it was a lot. So the plan was, I'd been talking to this guy for a while, and I wanted to get kind of a team together. And some of the fine folks you see on your screen here were the intended participants if Mother Nature hadn't royally screwed us on that. But that's kind of the backstory. So, yeah, it's a cool place. Hope to get up there at some point. But it is a beautiful part of New Hampshire, for sure.
Yeah. And, I think the best part about this was that there were 7 of us going, and everybody kind of has their own way of doing things, right? While some of it overlaps, but I'm not as tactical as Mike, and I don't think the way that Luci thinks. You know what I'm saying? But everybody kind of has their thing that they were bringing to this that would have made it really interesting.
Yeah, I think that we looked at things and just the background. So we're coming from all over the Northeast.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us were driving at least 6 hours to the first meetup before we drove the next 3 hours, and it was really from my perspective getting in the woods. I mean, I've been in the woods with Aleks before. I've been on Kyle's show. Brian, you and I have kind of chatted in some of the other chats. Is how we really look at things from the scientific standpoint. We kind of bounced a lot of ideas, and as the chats listen is, what were we bringing to complement each other or safety or something like that? I mean, at one point we talked about setting up some tripwires. That way if something came into camp, how many folks are out there, setting some kind of noisemaker up to let us know that something's coming in, or I had some light sensing motion sensors and security cameras and that kind of thing. And then that background that we had, you, Brian, bringing Chewie with us and having a dog on site, it really was kind of a cool idea how we kept bouncing those different ideas. And I think that's when we kind of, Kyle and I talked the other day, is that what can we really show everybody that we're really looking at those really great ideas, not really give the site location away, but how we plan to put base camp and venture out from there, not to take all of Alex's usually cool stuff with STM stuff out of the, but what we can kind of throw their way.
Yeah. I mean, the rain. I mean, we had planned for drones. We had planned there was a thermal for everybody.
If not two.
If not two. There was a night vision for everybody. And the rain took most of the tech away. I mean, you can't fly a drone in the wind and the rain. You can't,
Well, especially like the torrential downpour it was. It wasn't just like drizzling rain. Because, we would have dealt with that. Like, that's fine, right? I mean, in Alaska and I have other places I've flown drones and drizzling rain. It's fine. But when you're talking nor'easter rain, yeah, you're not getting much tech out. You're not putting $1,000 thermals out overnight with that kind of weather. No. And the thermals the rain ruins a lot of what thermals actually can see. I mean, everything kind of becomes a uniform temperature. So it's just not conducive. I mean, there's this system I've been developing for a saddle hunting setup that allows me to actually climb up into a tree and sit up there and but the idea is you're getting sort of a higher view. Maybe you're out of scent lines that animals might be able to smell. Potentially, just get a broader view with the trees thinning out, and that wouldn't be possible. I mean, that wouldn't be safe to do in really rainy conditions. So I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it, at least. So yeah, it took a lot of steam out of us, unfortunately. But I know some of the other guys had ideas and stuff they wanted to try. Brian has Chewie, of course, so he's our non-human team member who has those senses that are just ours aren't good. Our hearing, smell, that kind of stuff. Chewie's just on that next level. So we always like to have Chewie around, and Brian's a good dude too. So it's a good yin and yang to have on the team.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what's great about that area is because you're so far up north in New Hampshire, and being one of the least populated states in the U.S., we would have been lucky to see another person out there. You know what I mean?
Second most forested after Maine, also.
There you go. And then being so close to the Canadian border we were going pretty far up north, and it was just such a great opportunity that was kind of missed this weekend. And it's too bad because we had a good group of guys that we would have had a lot of fun and a lot of good ideas. So there'll be another time.
Oh, yeah.
Plus guns.
I think we would have everyone would have been pretty well armed. But I do just want to give a little bit more kind of background on this. And I know, Evan, you have stories from up in this area. So Evan focuses a lot on New Hampshire, Bigfoot-related stories, of course. Me also being a New Hampshire guy. But my focus is very broad. Alaska, I'm doing all this other stuff. So I like that Evan does solely New Hampshire. But do you have any interesting stories you want to share from that part of that neck of the woods?
Well, honestly, there's quite a few different stories that come from that neck of the woods. I mean, Mike Luci and I were just talking about it earlier this week with how many encounters there are on Route 3 alone in New Hampshire, a.k.a. Moose Alley.
Yeah.
There's plenty of reports that come out of the area. It's just really a matter of, well, which one you guys want to hear. There's too many to even... Well, for that matter, I think I got at least probably about 10 to 15 reports coming from that area alone.
What's the most recent one?
Got to pull up right here.
Yeah, it's a great area. Just it's so sparsely populated, and you get tourists occasionally, but it's even further north than the White Mountains, which is the big tourist draw. Like if you were anywhere in the White Mountains over the last 2 weeks trying to go leaf peeping, it would have been you and like half of the East Coast along with you. So once you get that, we call it north of the Notches. Once you get in, that's like true North country. They don't like flatlanders, which is anybody who's basically not from the mountains. So it's an interesting area. But Evan, go ahead.
Yeah, so the most recent report that I have personally comes from Mount McGalloway, which is in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. I'm pretty sure Brian and Alex, you both know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. Yes. September 22nd, 2021. The witness was sleeping in his Subaru Outback when he was awoken by the sound of footsteps on the dirt road. The witness had installed window blinds around his vehicle. The witness slightly peeked through the window. and the witness described a large humanoid figure standing a few feet from the passenger side tail light. The witness didn't see any details of the creature, but he said that it appeared to be curious about the storage container on top of his car, which it approached with curiosity. The creature started to touch the latches of the container when the witness triggered the car alarm on his key fob. The creature shouted, startled by the alarm, then smacked the roof of the car and shook the car. The creature could be heard running while the witness scrambled to his driver's seat and started the car. The witness thought that the creature must have ran towards the trailhead in the opposite direction since he did not see it on the way out. So basically a lot of curiosity stories, not a lot of aggression towards people. Towards dogs and animal livestock, that's a different story. But when it comes to people, these things seem to be more curious than aggressive.
I think that changes from place to place, it seems like.
Agreed.
Like, you know, Alex, we've talked about October Mountains stuff, like multiple reports come out of there that have been aggressive. The Oklahoma stuff is aggressive, it seems like.
Alaska, there's a bunch of that stuff too.
Yeah.
That's the South. I mean, skunk ape stuff, Falk monster.
We don't get that much.
I wonder why.
New York, it's not usually a violent kind of thing. It's kind of interesting.
The most
Whitehall, I guess, A-Bear Road, I wouldn't consider violent.
I wouldn't call A-Bear. It was just there. And I think, you know, you talk with Brian sighting or those guys, it was there, you know.
The people were the aggressive ones, I guess.
Yeah.
With the
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You know, they were in the territory if you look at the whole Whitehall thing.
Yeah, usually if you look at the reports around here, New Hampshire, Maine, some parts of Massachusetts and Vermont, it's more of which I've noticed that they react to noise and a barking dog or animals in general, they react to the most. Brian here has a little bit of PTSD about one that came from Mount Cabot regarding someone watching their dog get killed by a Sasquatch while they're hiking.
Wait, what?
Well, yeah, that's a wild one. That's also Coos County, by the way.
Also Coos County, the southern point.
So, yeah, and I've hiked that mountain. Brian and I both hiked it because it's part of the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers list, which are, it's the Appalachian Mountain Club. They have a list of mountains that are over 4,000 feet. So I hiked it a few years ago. Brian has done it like multiple times at this point because he's a badass.
It's the northernmost peak.
Mount Cabot, yeah. So it's named after John Cabot, I presume. You know, like the Cabot cheese, all that kind of stuff. And it's a very, very rugged trail. I got to say, even compared to some of the other mountains in the White Mountains, the wilderness to go up there, I actually spent the night at the cabin. There's a cabin on the top of Cabot at the 4,000 foot level. And it was a really cold night. It was October of 2018 or 19. And we had snow, the first snow of the year, and it was very cold. There's no wood stove in that cabin, so we were freezing our tails off. But, I mean, Evan, do you want to just tell the story, I guess? Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm just trying to
pull up the file. This guy has, like, you should see his files. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, and what's great about that area, too, also being up further north where there's not a lot of population, is you park at the fish hatchery, the New Hampshire Fish and Game, the fish hatchery that they, you know, where they do all the fish spawning. So it's a really cool area to go check out before you go hiking up, just to see all the different, I wouldn't call them wells, but kind of, the live wells.
The fish ponds. Yeah, and it's, I mean, hey, that's an interesting food source. But like and that's really close to Berlin, New Hampshire, which is where when I first started in like 2015, 2016, I was going up to Coos County once a week. I was hanging out with a researcher up there, and we were right in that area of Berlin, which has a really long history of sightings, wood devil stuff. I mean, it even makes the local news every once in a while. And Cabot is just a little bit further north of where the parking is. You practically have to go through downtown Berlin to get there. So there's a really interesting history there. There's a Native American kind of history. There's a 10,000-year-old rhyolite mine in Berlin that the Abenaki dug that they would use for all kinds of harvesting for spears and other stuff. So there's a really weird history in that area. But this report,
it's in that areas too.
Yeah. I mean that's where, and you know, to this day there's stuff coming out of those areas. because it's just so sparsely populated. But there still is some human presence, but just not really that much. But
what I find interesting right here is that Evan brings a story up, and most of us talked about car camping just because it was easier to kind of move from location to location because we were going to try to do a couple of spots. And how we were talking about doing the old wagon train thing where we were going to circle up so we could put, a 360 perimeter out and put the thermal cams between each of the cars. And that way we had a 360 light set up with a camp in the middle. And now hearing that, this was an approach on a car up there, and you have those approaches on the cars, basically we had some bait stations already set up using our vehicle. So kind of interesting on that.
Alex can vouch for me on this one. When Alex and I met up at his spot in Mason, animals in general recognize cars as a food source for the most part. Bears, I can't go to what exactly it was, but my son's mother stashed a brownie into her gas cap, and let's just say the raccoons were going around the car trying to get into the gas cap, and the coon bait as well that we had
raccoon bait in the car too. So they were desperate to get in there. There were scratches all over the side of that windshield, footprints everywhere.
Yeah,
we were like, how did we not hear this? We weren't that far away, but I guess things happen.
They're determined little buggers, man.
Oh yeah.
But before you share this story, though, Evan, I do want to hear from Mike. We'll say Luci, since there's two New York Mikes.
TBR, that works fine.
It's confusing, yeah. Mike and Luci, too confusing. But Luci, I mean, you had some ideas kind of about this weekend, or what were your thoughts kind of about the whole area? Because you've done some backpacking in New Hampshire before.
Yeah, that was up in the White Mountains about a year ago today. It was just a unique opportunity, just having access to private lot of land that large. So definitely something along the lines of like large scale sweeping with the drones or something like that. I know there was that 2,300 foot mountain that was on the property. I thought we definitely could have used that to our advantage. So.
Especially with all the logging up there, there's a lot of
sure.
clear-cut areas that, we hear reports all the time from out west about logging operations, having Sasquatch harass them.
Stirring it up.
Yeah, just checking them out, seeing what's
Bluff
going
Creek.
on.
Yeah. I mean, it's and that's the thing. That is logging country in New England. So once you get past the notches, when you get into really Coos County, Western Maine, all of Northern Maine, this, I should say, is very different from other parts of the country where you have giant swaths of wilderness. We're talking tens of thousands of acres, hundreds of thousands of acres that are not state land, they're not federal land, so it's not like a national forest or a national park or preserve or like the Adirondacks as a state park. This is privately owned land, so most of it you can't really get into. Some recreation is allowed, but in like places like Maine, you got to pay to go and use that land. So it acts kind of as a deterrent. So that's why the hunting up there is world class. The fishing is world class because people that go up there really are determined outdoorsmen. They're not just the regular weekend kind of people that are going to go to the White Mountains because you don't have to pay to get in. So it's just creates less people in general. So Coos County, this whole area is like that. But yeah.
There's a place up there in New York, actually, that's kind of like that. It's kind of like St. Lawrence County. It's kind of like in between where like the Adirondacks end. And, it's like up at the Canadian border. And there's a good amount of reports that come out of that area.
Interesting.
So I spent some time bouncing through there. Even the moose have started to really move into St. Lawrence and Jefferson. That's the western side of the Adirondacks. So definitely quite a few. Actually, I found up by Cranberry Lake on that side, found a Bigfoot restaurant. So if you guys are up through there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Stop for gas, and I'm like, wow, what's wrong? And I turn around and look, and there's a whole, pictures, big old pancake. So, those guys are awesome, cool. Like in the middle of nowhere. So
that's awesome. But Evan, do you want to share that story? I mean, it's a good one. It's pretty messed up, though. You guys are squeamish.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Yeah,
Brian's gonna leave.
I'm an animal lover too, but I still want to hear it just because.
Yeah. So this encounter took place July 12th of 2010. The witness describes her and her dog hiking up Mount Cabot one evening, trying to catch a glimpse of the brilliant sunset that New Hampshire has to offer. Little did she know they would not be enjoying the sunset that evening. The witness described that about a quarter of the way up the trail, her dog was roughly 10 to 15 yards ahead on a steady pace, occasionally stopping to check where her owner was. The dog then stopped at a certain point and started to aggressively bark and snarl at the woods on the right of the trail. This behavior behavior that she had never observed her dog act like before. The witness started to whistle and call her dog to come to her, but the dog turned his head, and the saplings along the trail got pushed forward as a large mass quickly overwhelmed her dog. She described gasping and crying as her dog yelped in fear and struggled in the massive creature's hands. The creature she described was a massive humanoid with shaggy brown gray hair and had noticed her presence at the time. She said that the creature gave off an energy that made her freeze, as if she was being told that if she came any closer that it would kill her too. Frozen in fear, she began to cry and mumble her dog's name as the creature flared its teeth and morphed its face into a hateful glare towards the witness. Then, with one hand, the creature broke the still struggling dog's neck and then, with its kill, ran into the surrounding forest. The witness, in fear, came to terms with her now deceased dog and ran back down the trail. She still hasn't returned to Mount Cabot to this day. The witness claimed to call the police, but they said that it was probably just a bear, but they would look into it. No follow-up with the authorities came afterwards.
That's terrible.
I do a lot of hiking. I think about that story. For every hike now, it's awful because my dog is always ahead of me. He's always on the trail.
Always.
And he always gives me that look, like that
Make
pathetic
sure
look,
you're
like
there.
hurry up. And he just, the way Evan says it and how she explains it, it's just like, it puts me in her
And
puts me in her shoes, and it's like, if that ever happens, I would, oh my God, I would lose my love for the wilderness. It would,
me and you
it would kill me. It would kill me.
When we
Didn't you have a story like that, Alex, on your Honey Island Swamp Monster thing with like the guy brought the head back a couple of months later or something like that?
Yeah, that was a weird one. So that was a story that I heard from somebody that happened to somebody else. So to full disclosure, the researcher down there, she told me that, I'm not going to derail from this, but just real quick, that this guy was claiming he was having activity on his property and that I think it was a pit bull or something like that. The dog was killed and the head was gone. Like they just found the headless dog in the yard. And then I don't remember if it was like a few months or a month or no, a few weeks later, something like that. The head was brought back, like the uneaten head just left in the yard, which seemed very sadistic. But this story with this lady is pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to believe at sometimes, but I mean, these things I imagine would be capable of extraordinary violence like this.
Why not?
Right.
I mean, the thing that stuck out to me the most is something I've heard before, is the way that she and Evan described the face morphing into this like angry. Like I've heard people's accounts of seeing these things, and they would use that word like often. It went from this normal kind of humanoid looking face to morphing into this angry monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be hiking in the Gorham area on Wednesday. So this is great, which is northern New Hampshire.
You carry?
It's gonna be stuck. No, I don't. I carry a knife, and
It's not gonna help. That's not gonna do the job there.
Sometimes it will.
No, but
Rhode Island and their gun laws.
I don't. When I go out hiking, usually it's like Sasquatch isn't on my mind. Hardly ever. It's usually you're just watching your footing, especially up in New Hampshire with how rugged it is in those mountains. You have to watch your footing. So I think another reason why there's not a lot of sightings is because people are always, when they're out hiking, usually your head's down and you're watching where you're walking.
Yeah.
I've told it of many a times. I've had some strange stuff happen out there, and it's I think that's what I like about having my dog out there is using his senses to my advantage. I know him so well and how he reacts to certain animals that it really helps me out there in certain, because it's just me. Usually it's just me and him out there. I don't really hike with anyone else, so I'm by myself out there. So using him, it kind of puts me at ease in a lot of situations that we've come across, with the moose and other things, and the knocks. So, but yeah, New Hampshire is a gorgeous area of the country, and
best state, but I might be a little biased.
It's a gorgeous state, and I don't think a lot of people just know how that aren't from around the Northeast area just don't know how rugged it is and how much forest there actually is that is just untamed. Like no one has set foot. And a lot of these areas where I've gone out hiking, where you're Alex knows from doing a lot of the 48 hikes. You get into some of those areas, you're 5, 6, 7 miles in the middle of nowhere, and it's just you and the trail, and all this untamed wilderness. So it's such a great area to explore, but it's so dangerous going off trail in New Hampshire.
People go missing out there regularly,
and if you're not, I'm
a lot of rescues.
I'll go on trail if I'm with another person, and I carry a Garmin. I carry an satellite phone with, has the GPS and everything. But I wouldn't venture off trail by myself because, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens in the White Mountains and a lot of missing people.
People say we don't have mountains out here, especially from out west. And I've seen people who have come from out west and hiked some of the stuff, and they're like, hiked the Appalachian Trail, and they're like, New Hampshire was the hardest part of the whole trail.
Yeah,
because it's all up.
They're saying like 2 miles in one of those mountains out west is like a mile in the New Hampshire mountains. The difference in
it just goes straight up. I mean, I was recently in Utah, and there's a lot of switchbacks. You go up, a lot of these trails used to be horse trails or whatever, carriage trails. You go up and zigzag. In New Hampshire, I'm like, the New Hampshire trail will be that. You go straight up the side of the face of the mountain. I mean, like Mount Jefferson, that's like as close as you can get to basically rock climbing without needing gear.
Yeah.
I mean, Huntington Ravine, all these places are like insane. I mean, there's a 25 most terrifying list in New Hampshire of the most terrifying trails. And I remember doing one of them, which is named, it's like a French name. It's named after the most bloody battle in World War I, which maybe should have been like a metaphor. But my buddy and I decided to hike it after like a 12-mile day doing Madison and Mount Adams, which are part of the presidential range, which is known to have the worst weather in all of America, by the way. And we're going down this trail, and there were these parts where we had to drop our bags through these crevices and go through these caves and crawl in. And it was so brutal. I'm like, why would anyone choose to do this? And that's what they call a trail. And so, but the point is, there's a lot of this wilderness. It's a small state, yes, but it's the second most forested state. And if you combine the northeast part of Vermont and then those hundreds of thousands of acres in Maine, and then you've got millions of acres in Quebec right above it, you basically have a gigantic wilderness area that's home to thousands of moose. I mean, there's thousands of moose in New Hampshire, but there's apparently 50 to 70,000 of them in Maine. A lot of those guys just come over the border. There's 30,000 black bear in Maine. I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't see them, you see sign of moose because they're big and dumb, but it's there's something about it. I mean, I don't know. Especially that northern part, because there's just nobody up there.
And that's, I want to make a point that for those guys turning, we got Bigfoot shows and we cryptid shows or whatever, but when we really started talking about this, we were more talking about the moose and the bear and the other animals that we were going to see. I mean, I've spent like 3 weekends now going up in a couple of areas in York trying to find them, and I got to get over to New Hampshire and gone back through Vermont and over into Michigan. I have yet to come across one. So like this weekend I was like, we're gonna find one.
Almost could have guaranteed it too.
That's guarantee Moose Alley. No,
so it's got to be me that but the point is that the nature that we were going to go look for was, the amazing part that I was looking for. You New Hampshire guys, Mike, when you look at maps and how you look at things is different than the rest of us. It's just, where were we going to hit and what nature were we going to find out there? That whole point of what's there to eat, what's there to, consume, survive. Can that big animal, can that big bear, that moose, move around and that stuff? I mean, that's kind of a big thing that we're really, all the gear that I had packed. I mean, I had freaking digital microscopes packed and everything else for things,
There's such an abundance of food up there. It's ridiculous. Because me and Evan took a ride up, up in northern New Hampshire. Was it a year already, Evan? Has it been a year or longer?
It's been a while, bit longer than a year. Yeah, and we saw tons of moose off the side of the road, and they're just
we
right
saw
there.
seven in 2 hours. And
We
that
saw
was just
four.
the moose. We saw fox, we saw deer, we saw everything.
Yeah, we
And
saw
it's great
because
because you see the eye shine. You see them right off the road, right off the side of the road.
Yeah.
You see them. That just shows the abundance. That's not even going off the beaten trail. That's right in front of you on the road. So it's untapped investigation areas up there is what I should say. And it's such a great
for
area
someone that's
just
not
to
around-
explore. It would have been just great footage to get. And
For someone that's not like from around there too, Brian was basically awestruck, like seeing
oh,
4 moose in the course of 5 minutes. We were going right down through Dixville Notch.
I've had one
You know,
in
standing
all,
over
in all my hikes, and I have so many videos to back up my hikes on my channel. I've come across one moose, and I was lucky enough to kind of get it on my GoPro. But I've had one moose encounter out in the middle of nowhere, and they are big. I mean, they are a big animal. You don't realize how big they are until you see it in
face to face.
Close, face to face. TV doesn't do it justice.
Nope.
But to see the girth and just how they could just run you right over if they wanted to was just such
they're
an
gigantic,
rush.
they're dumb, and they're aggressive.
They are dumb.
It's a giant sack of meat on popsicle sticks for legs.
Yeah,
that's why
it's
when
got
you
a
hit them,
peanut for a brain,
destroys your car.
Scary.
Oh yeah.
Like if you hit a moose with your car, you might as well just hit a tree.
You're
This is
done.
going to be the same. You're pretty much almost going to die. I mean, I've seen hundreds of moose in my life. I've been really lucky to have seen moose a ton here in the Northeast. I've seen them in Colorado. I've seen a ton in Canada and Alaska. But after Canada/Alaska, like that kind of area, I'm grouping that together. I've never seen more moose anywhere than in northern New Hampshire. And there's a reason why Route 3 up there is called Moose Alley. It's considered to be one of the best places to spot moose anywhere in the Northeast. I've seen plenty in Maine, but again, Maine is so vast and large. I've been up there on trips where you'll maybe see 1 or 2 moose a trip. And one of my last times, actually, was back in 2020, on Moose Alley and driving just the loop down through to Errol, New Hampshire, Dixville Notch. We saw like a dozen moose in the course of a day. I mean, that's pretty unheard of. So it's a place you go to see them. People, it's well known for it.
Yeah, and they have moose tours
Yeah, they have moose tours all.
and it's pretty damn popular if you want to pay the money, which it's not cheap.
I've seen them at night driving around. They pull over on the side of roads.
It's like a big bus they go on.
It's a bus with a spotlight, and they go spotlight the moose. They're the only ones allowed to do spotlighting.
Ironically, in New York, Route 3 is where they want you to go to look for the moose in New York, which is kind of strange,
Taking a page out of the New Hampshire book.
Yeah.
But
listen,
no, I mean it's.
You hit a moose with your car. I don't know if any of you guys ever hit a deer, but a deer will destroy your car.
Yeah.
Total it.
Lost
so
my
moose,
Land Rover.
1,200 pounds.
1,200 pounds. Yeah, you're done.
Unbelievable.
You're done. Screwed.
I mean, if you guys have ever seen the show, or anyone in the audience has ever seen the show Northwoods Law, that show, most of it took place in Maine until they got kicked out of Maine, and since then, like the past few seasons, have been in New Hampshire, and a lot of the stories revolve around in northern New Hampshire dealing with moose. Remember, one of the stories was really funny. Guy was moose hunting, because in New Hampshire there's enough moose. It's like a lottery system, but they do issue, moose permits. So this guy was hunting. He killed a moose, and it died and crossed the Canadian border, which up there is basically just they clear cut the trees a little bit and it's just woods on either side. So the moose, got hit. I don't remember if it was a bow or a gun or whatever. I think it might have been a bow. And the moose just goes and dies in Canada. So they had to get U.S. Customs involved. They call up the Canadians, and they had a joint kind of thing where they allowed them to cross and they dragged the moose back into the U.S. so the guy could get his kill. I mean, that's how it works in that area. It's that's like that guy. That's his family's food for the next year and a half, basically. So people live off the land up there a lot more. And it's just a great area. I mean, I've got a good history of reports. I've actually, technically, in my database, I have of New Hampshire, which is nowhere near as good as Evans or as expansive. But I have 11 reports from Coos County, which is the most for any single county I have. Most of them are like 9 or 8, 5, 7, stuff like that. But I have 11 from Coos County, and I've heard a lot of stories about the Wood Devil stuff. I've tried to track that down. It's just a great, great story.
Were you able to get any information, Alex, on sorry, Ron.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, were you able to get much information about it? Apparently there were like 2 spikes of sightings for the Wood Devils, one in the 30s, one in the 70s. How much information were you able to?
So I tried to track down a while ago the actual origins of the term Wood Devils, and I talked to the Historical Society in Berlin, New Hampshire. This is a number of years ago, and they told me to check a book. I don't remember the name of it. I have it written down somewhere, but it was like History of Coos County or something like that. It was a book from 1888. I found a Google copy of it, and I tried to find the words Wood Devil, but I couldn't. You'd find plenty of reference to wood, of course, because that area is considered to be prime logging country. Berlin is considered to be the city that trees built. Huge logging industry there formerly. And then I would find plenty of reference to the word devil, but never combined. So I couldn't find the origins. But I've been told by people, I had one guy, one of the reporters here, it was more of just a kind of story. I actually met this guy at an event, and he told me he grew up in, let's see, where's the report? It says, online acquaintance from New Hampshire told me about family camp in northern New Hampshire near Pittsburgh many years ago, where his grandfather would warn him about straying into the woods too far because the wood devils might get him, and that others in the area had seen them. And this allegedly happened in the 70s when he was growing up. So this is pre-internet. There was some debate that this story was maybe started by this blog post or a forum post way back in like 2003 or something like that. But no, the story apparently predates that. My craziest one I have that I'm still trying to get to the bottom of is from World War II. So it's Stark, New Hampshire, which is it's not even a town anymore. It's just like a territory now. There used to be a prisoner of war camp in World War II there. This is the POW story. A bunch of you guys probably know this one. And the camp, Stark camp, used to have German POWs. And there's actually even a famous case where one of the guys escaped. He was caught in New York City eventually. I think they turned it into, it's in a book. Pretty interesting story. But so that kind of gives you some context that this camp, there was Germans, they were brought here. And I was doing a library event in early 2020, and I was told of a story by a woman that it was either her father or uncle who was a prison camp guard at Stark Camp in Stark, New Hampshire in World War II, said that the German POWs were placed on logging duty, and apparently at one point they described seeing gorillas in the woods, and apparently refused to go back to work in that area, which to me is very unusual. These guys, they're obviously not there by choice. I mean, it's war. They're not there on their own will, right? So why are they making up gorillas, right? If they're just being cheeky or trying to get off logging duty or whatever, just, I don't know, causing trouble, why wouldn't they say make up another animal? Something that makes more sense, right? Oh, mountain lion, rhino. Why so specific? Why gorilla? And apparently some of the guys that are in the camp related it to the Wood Devil story. And I was actually like verbally told this story by this lady back in 2020, and I've been trying to track her down since then because I did the classic rookie mistake of not taking her information down. I just gave her my information. She said she'd reach out. They never do. So always get their info so you can at least hound them and not feel like a total failure for gathering very critical information that you then cannot track down afterwards. I'm trying to impart some wisdom here as best I can because, yeah, that was unfortunate. But it was a really interesting story. I mean, it raises a lot of questions about
and there's
the area.
There's the wood devils up north, and there's the devil monkeys down south, right?
It's separate. Yeah, you're right. Wood devils is, in my opinion, basically just a local story for a Bigfoot-like creature. They're basically described the same way, same type of way. I mean, I've got a book here. I'm so bad with the title. It was like Tales from 10,000 Campfires or something like that. It's an old story written by a bunch of fish and game guys that tell some of the folkloric stories of New Hampshire. And it's got a story about the bears that howl at night in the woods, in the mountains. And there was some debate because people are saying, oh, well, we've never actually seen one of these bears howling. We just assume that there are bears making these noises up there. But the wood devil description basically is a creature that's described as being tall, hairy, often gray hair, sometimes skinny, it really depends, and that they can almost blend in with the trees and you can almost walk into one before you see it. That's kind of the way I've heard the story. And it's very frightening in appearance. So for all practical purposes, I mean, it sounds very similar to modern Bigfoot descriptions that you might call or might prescribe to a sighting of a hairy man-like creature in the mountains, right? So I'm still trying to track that story down. It's one that I've always had an interest in, obviously growing up here in New Hampshire and living here my whole life, basically. It's just one that has always stuck out to me because, and so this property we were supposed to go to, by the way, the guy who had initially made contact with me told me about how he had heard from some of the old timers in that area, kind of wood devil-like stories. So I still need to talk to him about getting more of the specifics on those tales, but there were whisperings around.
Real quick too, just for anybody who's not familiar, like this is where the Barney and Betty Hill case was, is in the middle of the state, right? Not too far from Coos, am I correct?
Just south, yeah. So the White Mountains kind of lay, part of it is in Coos County, so you've got like Mount Washington. The presidentials are technically, I think, in Coos County, but it then goes into another couple counties. So generally, Coos County is considered to be more north, though. What would you say, Evan?
I think it was Grafton is what he's talking
Grafton, about. And I think there's another county on the side, on the left side,
Carroll.
if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Yeah, there's Carroll on the right and Grafton on the left.
I just posted Evan's Instagram in the chat for anybody out there. This is where he posts most of his findings, so go check that out.
Now, what's great about that Betty and Barney Hill is Alex and I did a hike a couple years ago called the Watcher.
Oh, and that's my favorite.
Supposedly, right at the Watcher, at the top of the Watcher, is where the spaceship was hovering when they were in their car looking up at it. So I got a pretty cool video of the Watcher on my channel from when me and Alex hiked it of just exactly where
that happened.
You could see all the way down the highway and just to where the craft actually was.
It's called Franconia Notch. It's right by Cannon Mountain. On the other side of Cannon, you have a ski resort, and there is then Cannon Cliff. Cannon Cliff is where the Old Man of the Mountain used to be. That's New Hampshire's most famous rock formation. It fell down, I think, in the early 2000s. I remember I was pretty young when that happened, and it just kind of collapsed. But it was a face that you look at from the side, and it looked like an old man's face. So Old Man of the Mountain, he's still on our license plates here. He's still in our corridor for New Hampshire. But the Watcher is this other face that you can see from the direct opposite side. So the road cuts through this giant mountain pass, and it's beautiful. One of the most scenic drives in New Hampshire, going through Franconia Notch. So where we hike is one of my favorite hikes, called the Watcher. So, I mean, if you guys want to go try it, be careful. It's pretty treacherous. But there's a face you can see, and it from the side profile, it almost looks like a woman's face. So I've heard it called the old widowed woman of the mountain, or just the Watcher, because some people joke around, oh, that was the wife of the old man. Since he died, she's the only one left, and she's now a widow. So it kind of just depends who you ask. But it's actually a very low-key hike. It's not very well publicized. You kind of have to know somebody who knows somebody to kind of learn where the trailhead is. It's not marked very well. Now, unfortunately, with the internet, you can look it up probably pretty easily. But it used to be like I had to learn from somebody about how to even get to it because it's not marked. It's not an official trail, really. It's used by rock climbers. So It's pretty gnarly. But yeah, that whole area, that's right where the Betty and Barney Hill thing happened, where they saw the craft, and a lot of people, more skeptical side of things, argued that they were just seeing the Cannon tram, because there's the Cannon tram that goes up the mountain. They were just seeing that going up, but they don't run that thing at night. And I don't think they would have done that in the early '60s. That probably would have been way too risky. So it doesn't really add up. But yeah, it's an interesting story. It's one of the more famous stories from New Hampshire, the Betty and Barney Hill stuff.
Yeah, we had your buddy on the show talked about that whole Betty and Barney Hill
John
thing.
Horgan.
John Horgan, yeah.
I love John. He's the man. He gave me like entire Bigfoot track collection and all of his old research. The guy is a living legend, and you've never heard of him. I mean, it's unheard of.
John is a very, very interesting man.
He knew everybody.
But he has such a vast knowledge of every piece of folklore.
It's incredible.
And history in New England. I mean, it's nuts, dude.
He knows everything. I mean, not just New England. This guy used to hang out with John Green in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
He stayed at John Green's house. He knew Stanton Friedman.
Yeah.
He used to go investigate Loch Ness. He was investigating Roswell. Him and I almost did a Roswell documentary back in 2017. So he knows his stuff. He was all over. He is like the one of the most. He's a guy who has some of the most expertise on the Bridgewater Triangle. He was heavily involved in that, and he was just all over the place. And then when the internet came around, he's like, "Oh, there's too much BS," and he got out of it. Yeah. So he's extremely low key, very interesting guy. I mean, he can go on for hours.
He sent me a whole bunch of files and stuff like that once, and I'm just honored to have that little tidbit, to refer to. And, again, that pre-internet stuff is just amazing. So
yeah, he's a character, all right.
Oh, he's a character, all right.
No, we love John. I think he's a dear friend. He's definitely somebody.
An amazing voice, dude.
Oh, he's a narrator. That's why I choose. I like him narrating some of my films, because he just does such a good job. When I first reached out to him, it was like 2016. I was just some kid, and I was interested in this stuff. And he's like, "Oh wow, interesting." And he's like, "Hey, you want my Bigfoot track collection?" And then he basically like offloaded all his stuff on me, and it was amazing. Because and I hope someday that I get to do that to some other kid who's just getting interested in this stuff and be like, "Hey, you want my track collection? It's been passed down," kind of thing. So, it was really cool to get to know him. But yeah, he had one of the first websites ever about New Hampshire Bigfoot stuff, where he had these recordings that he was told stories of in the late '90s, and he put them on a website. I mean, nobody was doing this back then, so it was pretty interesting.
Sorry, I'm just. Sorry, guys. Apologize.
No, there is that young gentleman that I think we might eventually be bringing out to get with us. That I think would be awesome.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man. That'd be amazing. That kid's
get Daniel with us.
He's just such a smart, exceptional young man. Like at his age, to be thinking the way that he thinks about this stuff. At 14, I can't imagine that my mind would be going, "Oh, I should probably try to get eDNA from these tracks," right? Like I at my mind at 14, if I saw a footprint in the woods, like I'd just walk past it at that point and probably thinking about my peanut butter and jelly sandwich at home. But this kid's like, I need to get eDNA and send it to a lab. And then he was on the phone and emailing over and over and over and over until he finally found someone who said, "Okay, like we're going to help you. We're going to do this. We're going to do it for free." I don't know. It's impressive. It's impressive. Hey, Salty, what's up, buddy? Thank you. Appreciate you, bud.
Mike looks like he's got something to say there.
So,
everyone
it's just
got quiet.
Yeah.
Everyone got very quiet. What happened?
Evan, read us another report, right? I mean, I could read reports. We could go through.
Just discuss them. I have one right here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So this one goes about how the wood devil itself in New Hampshire actually seems to be like another variation of a Sasquatch for the most part. I've talked to Alex and Brian about this a couple times before about how the wood devil almost kind of looks like the depiction of a Wendigo, like the proper depiction of a Wendigo, not the whole deer skull and antlers. But I'll start reading this one. This encounter comes from Lake Francis in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. It was late May of 1889, and the witness was fishing on the far side of Lake Francis, opposite of Route 3. It was almost 7 p.m., and he had just finished reeling in his third trout of the day. As he unhooked the trout, he noticed movement in the corner of his eye. As he turned his attention to the general area of the movement, he noticed nothing out of place, but did, however, notice that the woods were dead quiet. As he turned away and put the trout in his cooler, he continued to fish for his final catch of the day. About 10 minutes later, he had another fish on the line. As the fish was splashing about in the water, he then heard his cooler being knocked over. The witness then turned immediately and noticed a 6-foot-tall, scrawny, gray-haired creature running into the forest with 2 of his trout. The witness did not see any facial features, but did notice a malnourished look to the creature with thinning gray hair on its back showing the definition of the vertebrae. He also noticed that the creature's buttocks were red as if they were irritated. The creature was not incredibly fast moving into the tree line. Sorry, I'm just trying to read this. Vision's going. And only lasted about 5 to 10 seconds. He retold his story to his father, who was a logger in the 50s and 60s, who suggested the possibility of it being a wood devil.
Interesting.
It's kind of funny when you talk about the different personas and types and stuff like that. I did a thing on this actually, and there have been some attempts to classify Squatches by like types or subspecies or whatever. It makes a lot of people think that maybe it's possible that Squatches are like their own genus and they have a bunch of different like species and stuff like that branch out. But I came across maybe well over a dozen different Bigfoot types, but those include like, the small guys like they're Pendek types, to like outright giants like 10, 15 feet tall. But I pretty much came across like five major like types, and then you have like the patty type that's like supposed to be the most common, less aggressive. The ones up in the Northeast are supposed to be more like, they're called like relic hominids. They're the more like human Neanderthal looking ones. The ones you're talking about out in the Midwest, those are the ones that are called the Gugwies, I think. Those are supposed to be like the real nasty aggressive ones. They got the wood booger ones down south, and then there's one more I'm not thinking of. But like we're talking about like
south.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the Gugwi might be the ones from down south.
No, the ones down south were like from what I came across, they were called like the wood boogers. Those are the ones like kind of more more like skunk ape, the stuff that they've been seeing in the swamps and like Honey Island, stuff like that. The Gugwies are more of like the Midwestern type. They kind of have more like that baboon snouty.
Yeah, canid like snout.
Yeah. Some people say they might be, some people say they might be, like identified as like dogmen or whatever, or something like that. And they're not just like so exclusively located in those parts of the country. Like apparently people see different types all across the country, but
yeah, they definitely have like
I thought that was interesting.
I was thinking earlier, and I meant to say it then, was when Alex, you talked about the bear howling from the woods, or the bear, whatever. Sounds like the Bennington Triangle thing too, right? The bear men.
Yeah.
Similar.
I've not heard that, but I know Mike has been doing stuff on that. Luci has been doing stuff, so I've heard of like old slippery skin, but I don't know. I think that was considered to be a giant bear in Vermont. I'll be
Yeah,
right
that
back.
was the that was the thing you and I were talking about, Kyle, a couple of weeks ago at Glastonbury Mountain. I came across two different sources that said that the indigenous tribes in that area who frequented the area, they described that the mountain had what they described as bear-like creatures who lived on the mountain. And in both cases, it said they followed people home. One version I read said that they followed people back to their houses. The other version I read said that they followed people, caught up to them, and squeezed them to death.
Yeah. Right. And they blamed it on a real bear, actually, at that one thing. We talked about that.
Yeah, the Carl Howard case, yeah. So when I kind of found those two details, that was kind of like my aha moment for that. But
yeah, interesting.
I'm still kind of looking like corroborate that. So it's still out in the open as far as I'm concerned.
Do you guys, most of you, I think, well, at least a few of you were together up at the Whitehall thing, and you guys all went out with Culls, right? And what happened? You want to talk about what happened when you were out with him?
Yeah, there was three of us here. Half the panel was there. Myself, Luci, and Evan. And we went out to an area that Steve Culls has been going to for almost 20 plus years at this point. Mike Ann has been there. That's actually where I first met Mike Ann. We won't say the name of the location, but it's an area that's part of the Adirondacks, and Steve has had 2 sightings there that he claims. There have been other documented sightings in the area too, and we had a very interesting night. Possibly heard some vocalizations. Can't say 100%, but they were intriguing. We'll put it that way.
They're very crisp.
If they are indeed what we think they are.
Well, the first one we literally heard like the second we got there. Like people were still filing into the campsite when that one went off. I don't think anyone got that. Yeah, I don't think anyone even got that one on the recorders, but there were like 10, 11 people who heard it.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
It was interesting when Steve played your audio back, you could hear like a growl in the background because I had it going on my Bluetooth, not these headsets, but my hearing aids. And it was like directly, I could pick that growl up in the background, and that second sound you got was just different for up there. Did any of you guys kind of run that through like Merlin or something like that to see if it was an owl or anything? Been up to that area a couple of times. The birding app.
Is that software that you play audio and it'll like?
Well, there's Audacity, but through Cornell University, there's the Merlin birding.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. That's what I thought you were referring to.
And it's pretty close, or it'll get you pretty close to some other birds that are pretty close to things. Just knowing the area and where it's at. And then I guess my question for you guys from New Hampshire, what comparison to what you guys saw up there vegetation wise compared to New Hampshire? Differences or anything that you noticed?
It's definitely similar to the southwestern part of New Hampshire for sure. Otherwise, you guys have a lot more broadleaf trees compared to what we do. A lot of what we have up here is a majority pine.
Yeah, there's a lot of beech trees in that area in particular. I noticed beech last year, Mike, and when we had that bear encounter or whatever, it was primarily a beech forest from what I remember. Yeah, but it's deciduous. It's similar. I could take a picture of that area and it could look like my neck of the woods here. But New Hampshire is a lot more piney, a lot more coniferous than I'd say New York. But from what I understand, the Adirondacks and the White Mountains are geologically very similar mountain ranges that were kind of part of the same area, and it wasn't until they were split apart that the Green Mountains in Vermont came up in between them. That obviously that's geology, that doesn't affect the plant life, but it's similar. And I thought it was kind of similar, and it's in that foothills of the Adirondack kind of region. So definitely one area that supports other types of wildlife as we've seen. So. The history of sightings there speaks for itself. Culls has been taking reports there for a long time.
Yep.
And it's right on the edge, basically, of Whitehall, which is, in my opinion, kind of the East Coast or the Northeast Bigfoot capital of the U.S., just because of the history, the Abear Road incident, and obviously now the kind of more pop cultural aspects of it.
I mean, there's Bigfoot sightings all over the Adirondacks, though, not just that Whitehall area. Like, especially like up in the High Peaks area, even the central western parts. There's a ton of reports that have come out of there over the years.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Scott's map or BFR map or even Ryan Reading's map and stuff like that, I put them all over the top. There's still stuff that kind of gets scattered in between, or even some of the stuff that we don't see that's been, hidden on those back channels for the BFRO stuff, or that local guys have picked up and put down. I mean, I heard another podcast the other day that had a whole bunch of them on there, that John's podcast, for you guys over there, something I was going to ask when we got out is, what are you seeing for colors in your reports? That's a big thing for me. A hair color.
You want to go first, Alex, or?
No, you go ahead. You got more reports than I do, but
yeah,
go ahead.
So personally, with my own encounter, for example, the one that I saw was a black color. It was at night. It was actually coming up on the anniversary of seeing it, Thanksgiving, the night of Thanksgiving. But as I told Alex, Luci, and Brian before, when it raised its arm up to shield its eyes from the high beams, it illuminated like this reddish brown color on some of the forearm hair hanging down. And that's something that we tend to, at least myself, tends to see with a lot of reports, with them being dark brown, black to this reddish brick color around here. Now, towards the north, we do get a couple more of the gray coloration. Now, that could be, an older individual, or it could just be, they have more snow up there for more of the year. It could be an adaptation or evolution, so to say, to match their environment, kind of like the snowshoe hair, that type of stuff.
Yeah, interesting. The Auburn thing, I think I hear that probably more than anything. At least I definitely don't have as many people reporting to me as you guys have, but that's the color that I've heard the most throughout the reports that I've gotten.
So
Auburn.
My question on that is, have you looked to see what the vegetation is in that area, and are the trunks of the trees or similar to what that Auburn is?
Cedar trees, pine trees.
Some of you guys have seen that the paint sample thing I'm doing, where we can actually take those paint samples and put them up against the trees, and if somebody says they got brown or gray or cinnamon or something like that, when you walk out to those trees and put those paint samples up to them, you're like, geez, that's what they're seeing. They're seeing those colors in that area. So that's why I'm kind of wondering what you guys are seeing. That Auburn's kind of interesting, and be interested to see what the main vegetation, especially if you guys are seeing more of that, evergreen pine kind of thing compared to what we're seeing over here. So,
we have a lot of birch and elm, and beech trees for that matter. So it's not really similar colors to the bark that I've noticed with the reports that I've collected, at least. But that is a point. But I haven't seen any correlation with that.
I mean, I'm trying to. I haven't color coded my collection, but I've got. What do I have? 50 reports. Let me just scroll back up 1 second.
And here's another thought.
48 reports. So, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm sorry. The whole reason of doing a round table, and we would do probably around a campfire, and that's kind of where we're going at, is that now I'm thinking about, if you've got those pine needles on the ground, those pine needles are going to go to a cinnamon. So all those talks for years about them going all to the ground and moving on the ground, it's a lot different than being upright. So that Auburn on the ground would definitely be closer to something upright. So
here's something interesting, looking
at some wood samples here, going, geez,
the wood devil story is described as being kind of grayish in color, but that again is only one person's interpretation. Somebody might have heard that detail, and that's just the one that we're parroting now later on. But I do find it interesting that Coos County is technically kind of in the boreal region. It's different than even the White Mountains, or even obviously where I'm at here in southern New Hampshire, where Evan is, more towards the eastern side of the state. That area is just different. It's got that more boreal character to it. It's got a lot more coniferous. It's got swamps and stuff up there. Cedar swamps are all over the Northeast, though, but a lot in New Hampshire, too. They get a few degrees warmer in the winter than other places. That's actually why moose kind of like those areas to hang out in for the winters. But Coos County, again, being part of that boreal area, it gets pretty gray up there when the leaves are down. It's gray for half the year in terms of the winters, the roughness of it, the trees, all that stuff. So maybe gray might be a good color. I don't know, but I haven't noticed, and at least just looking at my reports here on my other screen, which I've got around like 48 or so that I've kind of more or less verified or spoken to the person or kind of had some correspondence. This is since 2016, so the colors kind of are all over the place. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm trying to see this one. Some of them people unfortunately didn't even list a color. Like if they sent me a comment and then I followed up with an email, they would just send me. So this one, he looked male, old and thin, possibly sick or very old in its last part of its life. Very light colored, patchy fur / hair, but it looked like it covered ground effortlessly. But they didn't mention the color. So, that's something that's kind of frustrating because very light colored, that could mean white. That could mean light gray. That could mean light brown. And that's where like Mike's color cards come in handy, where if I was to physically talk to this person, I could say, hey, just point this out. And Mike's about to pull it up. And
it's probably out in the car.
Great idea.
Yeah. So Mike Luci actually worked on something from the BFRO database that he sent to me. It's a spreadsheet for 3 different counties in New Hampshire. I asked him if he could focus on Stratford County, Carroll County, and Coos County. And what I'm seeing, and on a spreadsheet, one of the categories that he put down is color for these. And the vast majority of them are either black or gray, for that matter. Specifically in the northern counties, as in Carroll and Coos. Which, great job on that, Mike, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time. He just has this ability to take this data and like put it where it needs to be almost instantly.
Yeah, for sure. He's a newspaper .com or newspaper archive wizard too. So
yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Because I use that site too, but Mike has it down way more than I do in terms of being able to find specific stuff. Like he'll send me stuff that I'm not even aware of. Like I remember even with some of that Honey Island stuff, he would send me some stuff, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
Real quick, Henry asked a question earlier. He said he was assuming that we are running thermal and night vision, and he wanted to know what types he should consider.
Well,
Mike,
Mike's got a guy. I got a guy. I actually do have a guy. But I've run ATN thermals for the last couple of years, and I've got 2 ATNs and I've got a Seek. And I know Alex is a big Pulsar guy, but I have a guy on my team who has Pulsar. For thermal drones, we're using some other stuff that I've seen. That little Seek, psionics for night vision. If you're trying to say, buy what you can buy in your budget, make sure it records, and if you can get one that does audio at the same time, it's a wonderful thing. I've had one ATN probably 2 years after I started. I absolutely love that thing. It's been beat around, chest mounted, and everything else. And that's got Bluetooth capability, so it can run it on the table. So, those I know I can get. Those are in the other room. I got a Gen 1 Russian night scope that, never comes out of the bag anymore because it'll blow out. But again, the psionics are nice. They're small. I don't.
So here's a psionics. This is an. Oh well, hold on. I got to turn my ridiculous.
You do
background
yours, and
noise.
I'm going to go grab my cameras from the other room. So
Okay, let's turn this off because I have my gear table or whatever shelf is right behind me. So this is the Psionics. Since I guess we would have done this if we were camping right now, right? We'd be giving off gear. So this is the Psionics night vision camera. I actually just have it kind of rigged up on a Picatinny rail on the bottom, and I have just like a grip you'd put like on a rifle front grip. And then because the Psionics works with the IR flashlight,
Oh,
so
nice.
the camera can see that. So the point is, I was tired of having to hold the camera in one hand and the flashlight in the other, so I just kind of combined it into this little, you can kind of just...
A very good little doohickey.
Yeah, so that's cool. I personally am not a huge fan of IR stuff. I prefer thermals in general. Been lucky enough to play with a bunch of this kind of stuff, but a great, in my opinion, if you're looking like entry-level thermal stuff, one of the best, I'm getting tangled up here, is a AGM. This one happens to be an ASP Micro TM160. Brian has the Taipan
256, yeah.
Taipan 256.
A little bigger.
So this
lens-wise, it's a little bigger.
Yeah, we've compared them. So this one here is, in my opinion, it's a monocular. It is the best one you can get currently. At least I think so. Especially when compared to like a FLIR Scout. I think those things suck, to be honest. I got the chance to borrow a FLIR Scout for about a year, and I grew to really dislike it. It didn't even have a tripod screw mount at the bottom. It's just very limiting. This has a zoom. This was actually designed in the AGM. They do a lot of wildlife stuff, hunting related thermals. So it's a really good one. You can get these for under $400 when the time is right on Amazon, which is cheaper than the FLIR Scouts and is just a better overall thermal than a FLIR Scout if you're like on that entry level, in my opinion. And Brian, the one he has, I think is just like $100-$200 more expensive than this, and you just get more features as you go up towards $1,000. You get more features. Again, entry level. And I got to shout out my buddy Jonathan Easley over at Western Bigfoot Exploration. He has an awesome review on his channel talking about the 256, the Taipan, which again is just the model above this thing, and that gives you like a really good idea. And Brian and I have compared this one to his in the field. Very similar, but you just get a little bit better resolution, better features with the more expensive one. But if you're considering getting a FLIR Scout, don't do it. Get one of these instead. It's better for the same, like in a comparability with the FLIR Scout. Now, just to end with the thermal talk, this is my personal favorite thermal. It's the Pulsar Hellion 2. It is not cheap, we'll put it that way, but it is, in my opinion, one of the best thermal monoculars I've used. It's just really cool, and you guys have all kind of seen these in the woods, I think, and this is what Mike Luci and I got that moose footage of. Where we're in southern Vermont, and we're driving through these areas in his Jeep, and I see this big moose all of a sudden pop up. We were talking about moose earlier. I'm like, oh, stop the car. So we're chilling. We're watching this moose for a while. It was a mama moose. I could see her perfectly clear with no ears or anything like that folding back, which is usually the warning that a moose is probably going to mess you up pretty quick. So that was cool. And then Mike starts walking away from the Jeep, and I'm standing on the Jeep scanning, and I see this thing on the other side of the marsh area, and I'm like, what, is that a deer? It was smaller, and I realized that's a calf, and it's running the other way. So we were between mama and calf, and Mike's walking towards the calf, and I'm like, dude, stop. Get back to the car. And he's like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, we're between mama and baby right now. This is probably the worst place in terms of North American animal threats. This is probably the worst position you can be in. But luckily, nothing happened. They both kind of scattered in different directions. But it was cool to see them, and we had the safety of the car there. I'd like to think that Mike's Jeep could withstand a stomping from a moose. So,
Christy's got a great question. This is for each of us. She said she wants to know, if you can only take one piece of equipment into the field with you, what would it be? For me, it's my audio recorder. It's gotten me the best evidence so far. But I don't own a thermal. I don't own any of this stuff yet, so I guess I'm kind of at a disadvantage.
I gotta go get mine, but it may be cheating. So 1 second.
First aid
Thermal
kit.
monocular, 100%.
What is it, Mike?
First aid kit.
First aid
Sorry,
kit.
Mike. You go.
Luci?
No, 100% thermal monocular all day, all night. You could see shit in the woods, and even aside from like spotting a possible squatch or something like that, it just kind of gives you peace of mind knowing that you kind of have like a little thing that helps you see in the dark. So,
Right.
I always tell people the one thing I'm afraid of most when I'm out in the woods, besides like a moose, is like running into other people. Because unless they're losers like us doing what we're doing, they're probably not out there for a
that's
good reason. Yeah, so they're probably not going to be out there for a good reason. So if I'm able to have that little edge,
Here we
go. I knew this was it. I knew it.
Is this cheating?
Is
this considered cheating? My favorite piece of gear because it has everything that I need in it.
I knew this was it.
So obviously, we'll do a little show and tell here. It is a Hill People Gear chest rig. Got my little Mora bushcrafting knife underneath. So I was thinking about getting this thing for a while, and last year Joe and Jesse at Hellbent Hauler kind of pushed me over the edge to get it because I've been looking at alternatives, and they're like, oh, I think Hill People Gear ones are the best. So I was like, it's worth the money. Primary function, of course, is it serves as a holster for a firearm of your choice. So I happen to have just a Glock 19 in here. So that's the one function, right? So a lot of people wear like a chest rig, but
they could be a whole show on his chest rig.
That's not where the goodies end. We've got Garmin in here. We've got water filter. I've got my Bigfoot bushcrafting fire starting. I've got a Streamlight. I've got a first aid kit. I've got a water filter. I already said that. There's a lot. So again, I think it's cheating. I think it's cheating because I got everything I need in here. The idea is like if I had to bail on my backpack or something like that, I would have everything primarily I need with me, just in case. So, and my brother recently got hurt on a bike ride, and this first aid kit came in handy. So I realized I needed more medical equipment in this, so it kind of helped me amend my my needs for this thing. So again, cheating, but favorite piece of gear. So
I was either that or the Stetson. That was my guess.
Oh, that would have been a good one. That would have been a good one.
When you start to boil water in that thing, we'll be good.
I think the most important thing I take with me, because mostly I just do a lot of hiking, so for me, the most important tool for me to bring safety-wise is probably a Garmin InReach, probably a satellite phone. That would be my most important tool to bring with me.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because you're by yourself. Joe and Jesse told me this for the last year too. Like I need to get myself one of these things because I'm by myself all the time. I don't ever go out with anybody. Now I don't go. Most places I go aren't like where you go, right? You mean you are a climber extraordinaire. I'm not. I mean, I do go into the forest. I do go into places. I mean, shit can happen there too, right? I get it, but like it's not as crazy as where you're going. So I'm just I'll be all right.
On those Garmins, they have just one button. It's an SOS button.
Yeah.
You push that thing, they know exactly where you are. And help will definitely be on the way, but that's my best tool.
SOS button right
Chewie.
there.
Chewie.
So, what do they go like 300?
Man.
Hey.
Star of the show.
Chooster.
Huh?
Alex, what does that thing run? Like $300?
Oh no, these ones are more around 500 depending on how you get them.
Oh, okay.
I have a funny story how I basically got $100 off on this one though. It was a display model, and they sent it to me as new, and then they gave me a bunch of discounts and some money back. There's a bunch of scratches, and I'm like, that's fine, because I realized there was all these login checkpoints going back to 2021. I'm like, what the heck? This shouldn't be happening on a new model. And I call Bass Pro, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, I know something's up. And they're like, oh no, we sent you the display model. And so then I got a bunch of money off because it was either that or get replaced with a brand new one. So I was like, hey, I bought new boots and a ton of Mountain House meal stuff with the discounts and the money off. So it all worked out. But yeah, they're great. They're really, I mean, I've used it now in Florida, Louisiana, Alaska, Canada. Like when I drove the whole Alaska Highway, I would send a check-in every day to loved ones, and it works great, Especially if you do stuff like Brian does, you got to at least have the little mini inReach, which is the tiny GPS. But I just prefer having this because for me, I can also navigate and do maps and other stuff on here too, which is kind of cool. So,
yeah, that would suck if your Garmin does crash.
That happened to us.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. Christy's my co-host. We went on a quote-unquote moose investigation. I called guys like from New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Hey, where should I go? They put me in an area. We start, of course, with the cell phones. We know that's not gonna work. We've got the Garmin. It's the weekend. The Garmin gets hijacked, so the satellites got done.
Jeez.
Now I got a map. It's buried in the back. Again, that's why I push maps anytime I'm doing things. Make sure you got a map with you. But it's buried underneath all the stuff.
Yeah.
2 hours she got stuck with me going 5 miles an hour in the Jeep. The only thing we saw was a squirrel. That's the whole point about the moose for me, guys, is that we've gone 3 trips now and no moose. Checked all the locals, reached out to everybody I know. I mean, that's with running this bad boy where I can see a human-sized target or identify a human-sized target a half mile, heat signature 2 miles with this bad boy, and it's like, yeah, when it goes down, make sure you got it. But that's why I checked with both you guys, all you guys. Does somebody have a good GPS? All right. Yeah. Well, it was.
We all had Garmins.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that it happens, right?
But it happens. That's why I bring compass. That's why
sure. He's so right. Having a backup paper map, know where you're going. That's what I was talking about. We would go up to the store when we got up to this location and just buy maps because I was told that the locals there have maps that they sell for some of the logging roads and forest roads that we won't have service, that even if you have it might not be marked on your Garmin or even on any map you have on your phone that's preloaded. So that local information is not something that's going to make it to a hiking app or Garmin or something like that. So that's where the local aspect really comes into play in a physical map.
I stole a little bit of a tool from Les Stroud, actually. We're cutting the pieces of the bark off the tree on both sides as you're going in, so that on your way out, it's on back and front. But again, it's different when you're going into these really thick places where you're going. That's not really probably going to help you much.
That's why I say my thing is a first aid kit, because I've got all my evidence collection stuff that I need in there. I got my tweezers, I've got my tape, I've got my mask, right. I got my gloves, I've got everything to start a fire in there. But I've done quite a few where you just take the toothpicks out, or the popsicle sticks out, and wrap the ends with medical tape or the pink duct tape I usually carry. That way I can put those things as evidence markers. Alex used those big ones that Emily made after we talked to her, on trips, but I do them a little teeny tiny, I keep those popsicle sticks, 1 for splinters and 2 for marking everything, is if I need to go with some kind of reflective duct tape. So that's always in my first aid kit. So,
Evan, what's your number one tool?
Oh boy. All right, let's go with appropriate clothing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, but another one, and this is kind of a thing that Brian and Alex have both encountered when we went on a little bit of an expedition in Hampshire. Bring food and water.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's definitely what you got to do.
I always keep some Pop-Tarts in my backpack.
No, we had a nasty situation in one time. Always bring your food and water.
Little flags, though.
What the heck happened? I'd like to hear this story.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it's a funny one. I was not a part of it because they would have known better if I was there.
He is the Chuck Norris of the Bigfooting world. So.
Someone should have brought their own food. Let's just say that, and got real sick.
What's that? You got sick?
You're not supposed to eat all the clover in the field.
No, it's the fact that the person didn't have any food to eat, and then they got real sick and had to go home. Not me.
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah.
That sucks. Oh, wait, I think I might have heard this story.
Yeah, not at liberty yet saying it, but...
We talked about it in Freetown, right? Yeah, all right. Yeah, that sucks, damn. Yikes. Yike. Well, listen, we were going to go till 9, an hour and a half, because we don't want to overlap on Steve on Small Town Monsters tonight.
Right.
So we're already at an hour and 29 minutes and 35 seconds. So we got to end this this bad boy now. Also, guys in the chat, if you're not busy and you're going to be awake, please go check out Steve on Small Town Monsters when you're done here. Sure, it'll be a very interesting interview over there for sure.
It's actually Damon Irons on Small Town Monsters tonight.
Steve's got his show at 9, and then there's STM. So both of those are running at 9.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. So I misunderstood. All right. So
I thought you said Steve and STM at first.
I was confused. I thought Mike said he was on Small Town.
No, we have both good interviews going on both shows.
I know it's tricky to coordinate nowadays.
It is. Well, this was. I'll tell you what, man. When the idea was brought up, I was like, well, I'm definitely in. But I was like, I was very nervous about getting 6 people in the same place at the same time. It's not easy to do. It's not. So I thank you guys all for doing this. It's. I know that everybody's got their stuff, and it's hard when you're adults to try to coordinate this thing. But it was great, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
We should have been in the woods now, but we will make an expedition happen with all of us.
Hopefully next time we all get together like this, it's after an expedition.
Yeah, maybe we could do the live stream at like a local pub or something.
Plenty of spots in New Hampshire and Maine and the Northeast.
There's the Vermont. Well, we could try that again. We had a failed Vermont expedition earlier in the spring, so maybe that'll call for round 2.
It's been the worst weather in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Rain-wise,
it's been awful.
As long as I've been hiking, this has been the worst year for hiking that I can remember.
It makes me wonder if this winter is going to be.
I'm nervous about.
It's going to be pretty bad this winter.
I hope they get some mercy, but we probably.
Hey, there's already snow on Mount Washington.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, God.
That's well, you guys are all awesome. Thank you guys for being willing to want to go on this expedition in the first place, and I'm sure we will again make it work for sure.
I appreciate you guys a lot more than you know. So,
ditto. Back at you guys. This was. I was looking forward to this so much, man. But it's no one's fault. This is just. That's life, man. Take it as it comes. It sucks, but we'll get together and we'll make it happen.
Into the chat. Thank you.
Anybody want to plug anything before we go? Anybody got anything coming up? Nothing. Nobody.
Just stuff.
Well, I think all your channels were put in the chat, so everybody please go watch their channel, subscribe, like, hit the bell for notifications so you make sure you know when they're putting new stuff out. Evan's Instagram for sure. He's got a ton of shit on there that I didn't even know about. So
what's great about Evan's? Yeah, he's got so many encounters on there.
I've just been too busy to post a lot of it, so we're getting the website up. We're starting the YouTube a little bit more slowly but surely. Brian and I are supposed to be doing a podcast at some point, even though we announced it 2 years ago or something like that. But we're going to get to it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I will be back on Tuesday night with our good friend Dewey Edwards at 7 p.m. So I will see you then. Till then, have a wonderful night. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, guys.